you've got to become some kind of a celebrity, kind of famous. And the only way that I know to really do it is to do the things that I and my community of other celebrity entrepreneurs do. Now, I've written about this in my book, Celebrity Entrepreneurship, and I also wrote about it in my most recent book, Wisdom of the Men, where I talk about all of the famous people that I've met and how I got to meet them and what did I learn from them. And I also talk a lot about celebrity entrepreneurship. So, you know, if you want to investigate it more, I highly encourage you to crack off an Audible credit and listen to Wisdom of the Men. I did the audio myself, and it's full of great stories about how did I meet these famous people? What did I learn from them? And how did I become kind of famous enough to make many, many, many millions of dollars doing expert coaching, consulting, seminars, being kind of famous.
Listen to the Vibes.
Welcome, everyone, to another episode of Listen to the Vibes. I'm very happy to welcome Mr. Clint Arthur here. He's a speaker, he's an author, and you've met all kinds of celebrities. And if I read correctly, you used to be a taxi driver?
Yeah, man. I graduated from the Wharton Business School, #1 business school in the freaking world. And I went home to get the congratulations from my parents. And instead of it being a love fest, they get into the hugest argument of all time. My dad storms out of the house, slams the door. I'm sitting on the couch with my mom. I go, you know, Mom, the way he resents you all these years, have you been cheating on Dad? Is that what's going on here? And I'm thinking to myself, holy cow, where did that idea come from? I never even thought that concept even one time in my entire life. And then I'm thinking, wow, when did I become such a rude person that I would ask an obnoxious, rude question like that to my own mother? And then I'm thinking, why ain't my own mother answering the goddamn question? And I hope I haven't offended anybody with my language, but I get very passionate about this. And then she looks at me and she goes, he's not your real father. Your real father was a doctor at the fertility clinic we went to for 6 years trying to have you, and you look just like that guy. Say, what, Mama? And the next day I call up the investment bank that had offered me a job on the 87th floor of #1 World Trade Center.
Oh, man.
And I said, you know what, guys, I don't want to be an investment banker anymore. And what did I do? Naturally, I ran off to Hollywood. And I chased the Hollywood dream for 13 years. And what does that really look like? That really looks like me behind the wheel of yellow cab number 6087 for more than 6 years, hustling, trying to earn enough money to pay child support, to pay for my slip rental fee on my boat, which is the cheapest way you can live in Los Angeles. And, you know, takes me all the way through to New Year's Eve of the millennium. What were you doing on New Year's Eve of the millennium? Were you getting some Y2K cash? Were you partying with family and friends? Were you waiting for everything to end? I was behind the wheel of yellow cab number 6087. In the back seat, these two guys, they're MBA interns at Goldman Sachs. I'm listening in on their conversation while I'm driving them to a party in the Hollywood Hills. Hey, man, did you hear about Mr. Carrera? They made him the last partner right before the Goldman IPO, and he cashed out like $1 gazillion. And I'm like, hey, you guys talking about Chris Carrera? How do you know Mr. Carrera? Chris Carrera was a pledge at my freaking fraternity. When I was a pledge master, I used to make those little punks dance around the living room of the house with their tighty whities on top of their heads. And now this little punk just cashed out $1 gazillion as the last partner in the Goldman IPO. And I go back to my boat and count up my money at the end of the night, which is like 6:30 in the morning. $513. I was supposed to be special. I was supposed to be somebody special. And that's when I said, that's enough. I can't keep throwing away my life chasing a dream. It's never going to happen anymore. I cannot keep writing. I had written 30 screenplays. I had written 10 books. I had published a book with Penguin USA. That was actually the second time that night was the second time in my life that I said, I'm never going to write again. It's not worth it. What's the point? Why keep doing this stuff that no one's ever going to read? That's never going to make me any money. Throwing away my life while everyone's becoming millionaires and billionaires. And that's when I got out of taxi driving. I got into selling gourmet food, and I started making money. Once I started making money, well, of course, I met an amazing woman. Luckily, she believed in me and she loved me for me. And we have built a life together. And, you know, in that process, I got very fat and happy. Quite obese, actually. I was like 236 pounds. That's about 40 pounds heavier than I am now. And it took us all the way through to the great financial crisis of 2008, when the world was melting down. And I sought out help. Like, I took a lot of seminars to change who I was. I knew the reason I was a cab driver was because of me. It wasn't my education. It wasn't my parents. They were both successful professionals. You know, they raised me up in a middle-class household. The reason I was driving a cab was because of me, and I needed to change me if I wanted to change my life. So I started taking all kinds of seminars. And one of the seminars I took was this thing called the Men's Weekend, which was how to have more power as a man. And when the financial crisis hit, I went back to the men looking for help, looking for community of men. And that night there was a campfire with 18 naked guys dancing around, and I'm one of them. And I'm watching the sky. There's beautiful stars down at the beach in Southern California. And I see this guy jump over the campfire, and I noticed he was very hairy. And then I saw the shaman on the other side of the yellow and orange crackling flames. You don't know it yet, but you're already dead. What? What are you talking about, man? I'm the most successful guy on this freaking team. 8 years ago, I was driving a cab. Now I'm a millionaire. I was living on a little boat. Now I live in a mansion. You're already dead. You just don't know it. And I didn't know what this guy was talking about, but I couldn't get it out of my mind. I would wake up in the middle of the night out of sound sleep for months. And came to be New Year's Day of 2009. And I woke up and I was inspired by that shaman. And I asked myself a question that changed my entire freaking life. I said, you know, I don't really understand what he means. I'm already dead. What the heck does that mean? I don't know. I think I'm alive.
Right.
But what if I was going to die at the end of this year? What if I only had 52 weeks to live? What would I want to accomplish if this was going to be the last year of my life? And that was the best question I ever asked myself in my whole entire life, because that changed every single thing. And the craziest thing was that the first thing I wrote down on my list of goals for that year was I got to write my book about what I learned at the Wharton Business School that helped me to become successful once I stopped trying to be a screenwriter and a movie star and focused on making money as a businessman. That, you know, I told you, that was the second time I quit writing for 8 years, and I, boom, pumped out that book in 8 days. And I self-published it, and I waited for the sales to roll in for what they teach you at the Wharton Business School. And boy, did they ever roll in. All 8 of those sales rolled in 2009. And I was very smart, because I realized, hey, look, the things that I did to change my life was I attended seminars and I sought out mentors. And the same thing is what I did with my book. I sought out a mentor in book publishing. His name was Jack Canfield. He wrote a little book called Chicken Soup for the Soul. I said, Jack, how do you sell 500 million books? And he said, look, you can't be a nobody and sell books. If you think you're going to be a nobody and sell books, you're just kidding yourself. You got to be somebody. You got to be somebody special. You got to be really kind of famous. Otherwise, nobody's going to buy your book. They just won't buy it. Maybe your mother, your brother, but that's not what you're trying to do. You're trying to have impact, influence, and generate income. And that's when I started going on TV. I didn't know what else to do. You know, how do you become famous? So I called up a publicist and I paid $6,000 for my first 4 TV appearances, which were on little local TV shows. And I show them to my wife and I said, honey, what do you think? And she goes, I think you suck. At least in those days, she was honest with me. I don't know, now that I've become more successful, I'm not quite so sure she's as honest as she was in those days. But I said, I agree. I really do need a lot of help and improvement with my TV performance. So I'm going to hire this publicist to book me on 10 more shows. That's going to cost $15,000. And she goes, whoa, whoa, whoa. Why do you keep paying this lady? Why don't you just book yourself on shows? And I'm like, how the heck do you book yourself on TV? How do you do that?
Right.
And I didn't know. So what I did was that night I set an alarm for 2:30 in the morning. And I got up and I went to my office and I went on Google and I typed in ABC TV, Jacksonville, Florida. Why Jacksonville, Florida? Well, you could fly on Southwest Airlines to Jacksonville, Florida. So I figured I want to go someplace where I could fly cheap, right? And where it's not too big of a city, not too small of a city. And I started calling all these cities where Southwest Airlines would fly. And I kept getting versions of this call. Don't call us, we'll call you. Click, right? Who the hell are you? We're not interested. It took me 9.5 weeks before I was able to book my first TV appearance on ABC TV in Biloxi, Mississippi, WLOX, which is a tiny little town. And that was a really exciting thing for me because it was like the first time you catch a fish or the first time you get laid. It's a pretty exciting thing. And that really got me hooked on wanting to do this more because I thought I was onto something. In the first year, I booked myself on 7 TV appearances. My second year, I booked myself on 20 more TV appearances. Wow. So I saved a lot of money versus paying a publicist, and I eventually started getting better. And what I really noticed was that I was still going to a lot of seminars and people were coming up to me because I was posting these videos of me on local TV shows around the country on my Facebook, on my LinkedIn, on YouTube. And people were coming up to me and they're like, hey man, you're really doing it. You're making it happen. Keep going, man. You're doing it. And then some people started saying, how are you doing it? Can you teach me how to book myself on TV? And that became my first really successful information product. How do you book yourself on TV? And it ultimately evolved into a seminar that I've taught now 54 times called Celebrity Launchpad. The 55th time is going to be in July in Las Vegas. The 56th time will be here in my mansion in Acapulco in October. And, one of the things that I learned in this process was that TV is not the only way to become a celebrity in the eyes of your clients and prospects. And another thing I learned that's really important is that I'm never going to be famous. Jack didn't say you got to be famous. He said you got to be kind of famous. That's what he said. And I am kind of famous, but not to the general public. I'm like the most famous person in the world that nobody's ever heard of to the general public, but to my clients and prospects, I'm really kind of famous. And they are really kind of excited to work with me and pay me a lot of money, which is how I have what I have and how I've been able to do what I've done and hire the giant celebrities that I've worked with, like Dr. Oz and Martha Stewart and IceT. And I've got Cesar Millan that I'm doing an event with later this year, the dog whisperer.
Yeah.
I'm doing something with Reverend Joel Osteen in a couple of weeks. I'm going to be speaking at NASDAQ and the New York Academy of Medicine and the Beverly Hills Chamber of Commerce. I've had 21 best-selling books now. I've won, awards for what I do, which I call celebrity entrepreneurship. What I do, see, you can't be a celebrity. You can never be George Clooney. You can never be Kim Kardashian. It's like catching lightning in a bottle. It's impossible. If it happens, well, congratulations. But the reality of life is that there's only 100 genuine celebrities in the world, and you and I are never going to be one of those people. And the good news is that you don't have to be. Do you think Tony Robbins is famous?
Well, I think most people know who he is.
Well, See, this is exactly what I'm talking about. You think most people know who Tony Robbins is. And I'm here to tell you that that just ain't true. I'm going to show you a couple videos. And it's not just Tony Robbins. What about Grant Cardone? You think Grant Cardone is famous?
I don't have a clue who that is.
Okay, that's good. Hey, do you know who Tony Robbins is? No. I showed you his picture. You recognize him? No. You thought you knew who he was, right? You have no idea.
No, I actually don't. I thought he was an actor. He's not an actor.
No.
No. Okay.
Okay. Okay.
But he's been in a movie.
Yeah, that's true.
But Tony Robbins is, do you know who Tony Robbins is? No? How about you? You know who he is? Nobody.
Okay, and I know you're thinking, well, they're just the wrong demographic. That's really kind of the point, but let me show you a different demographic, one which might, you know, be more suspected, like you might suspect that this demographic would know who he is. Where is he? Here we go.
Hey, what do you think of Tony Robbins? You know who he is? Who the fuck's that guy? No, really. Do you know who he is? Don't know who he is.
You said you thought most people knew who he was.
I would think so.
99.5% of the people in the world have no idea who Tony Robbins is, because you know why? Because they're punching clocks and they are just trying to get to lunch and to happy hour so that they can, you know, drink some beer and have Netflix and chill. That's what most people are doing. Not like you and me. You and me and the people watching this podcast, we are what are called aspirational people. We are not trying to avoid pain. We're trying to move towards goals and pleasure. We know who Tony Robbins is, and that is because Tony Robbins is the ultimate celebrity entrepreneur, in that his clients and prospects know who he is, but the rest of the world has no freaking clue. And his clients and prospects are happy to pay him a lot of money, and the rest of the world will walk by him on the street and wouldn't even think twice. And that's what celebrity entrepreneurship is all about. And I've talked about and used a lot of the methodologies of celebrity entrepreneurship in this interview already. And the great news is you don't even have to be 1/1000th as famous as Tony Robbins to have it contribute millions of dollars to your bank account. I'm a person who can attest to that. I'm not even a thousandth as famous as Tony Robbins. He's so much more famous than me, but I've been able to put a lot of zeros in the bank, enough to have the life that most people would want. And that's from celebrity entrepreneurship. So there you go. How's that?
Well, and he's a pretty huge guy, isn't he?
Tony? Look, I'm not saying I don't love Tony. I freaking love Tony. He has been a huge guy in my life. You know,
well, I'm talking about size.
He is huge. You know, he is a huge guy, and he's been a huge guy in my life. I got a text message from Tony's team back in February of 2020, and it said, "Hey, if you donate $25,000 to Tony's favorite charity, then we will let you be the host of his 60th birthday party at the Microsoft Theater in Los Angeles." And there we are that night. And, you know, I said to him, "Tony, when I was a cab driver, I couldn't even afford to buy the CDs of Personal Power 2. I had to get the cassette tapes because it was $30 cheaper. And today, here I am, host of your birthday party." He goes, "I'm so happy for you, my brother. I'm so glad it worked out." Gave me a big kiss on the cheek, literally, and a hug. And I said, "Tony, what's the most important thing you ever learned?" He said, "Life is happening for us." And I know a lot of people, like, especially in this day and age, there's a lot of people who feel like, man, if only I had been born 20 years earlier or 20 years later, I'd have more opportunity. I'd be in a better position. Hey, look, you know, you are where you are, and life is happening for us. The pandemic has turned out to be one of the best things that's ever happened to me. It has extended my lifespan by, I believe, decades, because I changed my whole life. It's given me a lifestyle that I never dreamed that I could have, because it changed my perspective on the world and on my life. And now, now I live here. Now I live in Acapulco, and you can't see my
Gorgeous.
house, but my house is gigantic. Now we do our seminars, instead of doing the seminars all over the place, mostly we do the seminars here because we can accommodate 20 students at a time in our 2 villas down here in Acapulco.
Wow. Now, someone like me, I'm a podcaster. There's millions of podcasters out there.
Yeah.
But I want to get to that status like a Joe Rogan. But I mean, let's face it, the podcasts that I do are not the most popular because I do, you have folks that get into the gossip stuff or whatever's controversial. I wanted to spread something more positive.
Like Lewis House.
See, I don't know who that is.
School of Greatness. He's a New York Times bestselling author. He goes on TV. He hangs out with major celebrities. He's somebody. You want to be more like him, see? And Lewis House is a celebrity entrepreneur.
So you'd be able to take someone like me and help me get to that status?
Only you can get you to that status. Okay. Anybody who's going to tell you, and you'll hear this from publicists, right? Publicists are the worst about this. Yeah, we're going to make you famous. Only you can make you famous. I, as a mentor, can create opportunities for you, and I can guarantee to deliver certain things for you that are tools that I have used in this interview to position myself as a somebody instead of a nobody in the eyes of all of the prospects who are watching this interview. If you're watching this interview, you're now one of my prospects. And you're probably going to Google, who the hell is this guy, Clint Arthur? And you're going to find 5 pages of Google results before you see anybody else's information. According to Google, I'm the only Clint Arthur in the world in the first 5 pages of Google. According to Facebook, there's 100 guys named Clint Arthur. I'll come up number 1, but it's not like I have a unique name. There's a lot of guys. So I'm not going to take you and do for you something that's going to make you famous or make you Lewis Howes or make you Joe Rogan. Okay. Joe Rogan is another one of those guys who's like, it's like lightning in a bottle. However, I can put you in contact with major celebrities and get you photographed with them and teach you how to tell stories about them like I have been doing in this interview. I can help you to get on TV to promote your podcast. And I've done that with many podcasters. I can help you to be a speaker at very important places, like at NASDAQ or the Beverly Hills Chamber of Commerce. I can help you to win awards. And I can even help you to write books that will be best-selling books. And that's an essential tool of this whole game.
Well, and that's what my goal is. I'll tell you, if you don't mind me telling you my story real quick.
Sure.
I worked in public works most of my life, and one day decided I wanted to move to the Austin area. I used to live around Houston. I just felt like I needed a change. Houston was dragging me down. And I'll tell you, I've flourished a lot around here, but I ended up developing a disease in my spine. And so my career in public works was over. I had to retire, and but I didn't want to be that person who just lays on the couch doing nothing all day. I wanted to get into podcasting. Started out paranormal, but a chance meeting with the actor Adrian Paul actually changed my direction. And then I decided, you know what, I need to do something more positive and maybe help motivate other people. And hopefully my story of the things that I've overcome might inspire someone else, or I got an author or a life coach, someone out there can say something that can inspire or motivate other people. And it's been a tough road for the last 3 years, to say the least, but I'm determined. and I've taken advice from lots of people that have been on here, but this is a new concept that I'm just now hearing. I have met some celebrities. I will say that I have some friends who are celebrities. They may not be, I see, Robert Downey Jr. and a few others, and but still, I want to get there. So how do I get there?
Okay, well, look, I do mentorship for people who are authors, speakers, coaches, consultants, advisors, any kind of expert. And if you want to separate yourself out from the masses of people who have podcasts, you've got to become some kind of a celebrity, kind of famous. And the only way that I know to really do it is to do the things that I and my community of other celebrity entrepreneurs do. Now, I've written about this in my book, Celebrity Entrepreneurship, and I also wrote about it in my most recent book, Wisdom of the Men, where I talk about all of the famous people that I've met and how I got to meet them and what did I learn from them. And I also talk a lot about celebrity entrepreneurship. So, if you want to investigate it more, I highly encourage you to crack off an Audible credit and listen to Wisdom of the Men. I did the audio myself, and it's full of great stories about how did I meet these famous people? What did I learn from them? And how did I become kind of famous enough to make many, many, many millions of dollars doing expert coaching, consulting, seminars, being kind of famous, okay? And that's what that's about. If you want to go into it, if you want to get involved, we can have a further conversation if you want about what it takes to be a member of my MBA community, the $1 Million Business Accelerator. That's what I call it, the MBA. I basically, I graduated from the Wharton Business School, and I like that acronym MBA.
Is there any stories that you can share without giving any secrets away?
Well, I'll tell you what, this is a really good one. This had a lot of impact on a lot of people. You mentioned Robert Downey Jr. I met Robert Downey Jr. in 8th grade. It was kind of crazy. I grew up in New York City, like I told you, and I was Tony in West Side Story, and Robert Downey Jr. was the lead in the other school play that year, which was Hair. And because we were both the stars of the plays, we became friendly. And we went to see a movie. His dad was a movie director named Robert Downey Sr. Mm-hmm. And we went to his dad's movie in Greenwich Village. And then we went to go get a falafel sandwich. And he goes, hold on a second. And he ducks into a candy store and comes out. We're 13 years old with a pack of Marlboro Reds. And he pulls out one and lights it up and takes the pack and crushes the pack of cigarettes and throws it on the ground. And I'm like, what? And he goes, I just wanted one. Now, it shows you Robert Downey Jr. had a lot of willpower, even as a young kid. But as we all know, his willpower wasn't enough to keep him out of jail. His willpower wasn't enough to keep him from becoming strung out as a drug addict and almost ruining his whole Hollywood career. But lucky for him, he comes out of rehab and he gets hired onto a movie by this lady named her name is Levine. His wife's name is, and I can't believe I'm spacing on it, but he meets this woman and she hires him on a movie, and then they start dating and she becomes his wife, and she becomes his producer and turns him into Iron Man and Sherlock Holmes. And the funny part is that my wife, who has been a great help in my success, a lot of people would say a great driver of my success, very smart lady. She used to be the president of a production company in Hollywood. And this girl, Levin, who's Robert Downey Jr.'s wife, used to be her development girl. She used to work for my wife. So the moral of the Robert Downey Jr. story is, you got to be with the right person. Before I met my wife, I had a baby with someone else, and my life was like almost like prison. It was like a jail sentence. My agenda was irrelevant. The only thing that mattered was, did you pay for this? Did you pay for that? That's how come I started driving a cab, because I had maxed out all my credit cards and I needed to make money to pay for the baby and my fiance's needs. And when she kicked me out of the house, it was like I was set free from prison. But when this whole time that I've been with my wife, we're going to have our 20th wedding anniversary in November. Man, it's been just a great adventure and a lot of fun and success. And she believed in me more than I believed in myself a lot of the time, especially in the beginning. So the moral of the Robert Downey Jr. story is you got to be sleeping with the right person, because it's those, it really makes a big difference. And I'm not talking about, nepotism necessarily. What I'm talking about is the person's belief in you and the conversations you have in the middle of the night. We were at a conference one time, my wife and I, and one of my great mentors in marketing was this guy named Dan Kennedy. Do you know who that is?
Yes, I do know who Dan Kennedy is.
Okay, so I'm Dan Kennedy's Information Marketer of the Year. There has never been another one since I won that title in 2013. I'm the reigning Information Marketer of the Year. And we were at one of his conferences one time, and he was, so inspirational. I said, Dan Kennedy's a living legend. We should do a conference. I said this to my wife. We should do a conference where Dan Kennedy is the speaker, and I hire him and a bunch of other guys like him, and I'll just be the MC and introduce them, and they'll do most of the speaking, and I'll just be there as the master of ceremonies and run the conference. And she goes, I love that idea. Well, that's how I got to Carnegie Hall. That's how I got to perform on the stage at Carnegie Hall and share the stage with Martha Stewart and IceT and Jerry from Ben & Jerry's and Michael Gerber, who wrote the E-Myth. And Robert Downey Jr.'s wife's name is Susan Levin. That's it. So there you go. So it's the conversations that you have with your spouse. When my wife could have easily, like baby's mama, said, well, that's a stupid idea. That's never going to work. You're never going to be anything. You're too old. You're not a good enough actor. You're not this. You're not that. That's the story I heard from baby's mama. But from my wife, what I hear is, I love that idea. That's awesome. And that's what got me to Carnegie Hall. And I'll never forget the day I was like running last minute errands right before the conference. I had to get big posters printed up for the boxes, in front of Carnegie Hall. And my wife texts me a photo and she goes, congratulations, Clint Arthur, you just made it to Carnegie Hall. And it was a picture of one of my slides from my slide deck presentation projected on the screen at Carnegie Hall. That was a huge moment for me. And that's because I'm married to the right person.
I know what you mean, man. It sounds almost like my story, because my first wife, nothing but drug me down. And it took me 10 years, but I found a woman who's in my corner, and she's pushed me to do a lot of this stuff. And, when I come up with a bad idea, she doesn't mind telling me it's a bad idea. But if I come up with a reasonable or a good idea, she says, go for it.
Yeah. You need people like that in your life, because, look, most of the world, they're just punching clocks, trying to get to Miller time. And, people who are aspirational, you got to put yourself in situations and circumstances where you're going to be in the rooms with other people who are also aspirational and who are also trying to make something of their life instead of just get through it.
Yeah, I've talked about the circle a lot of times. I've got those friends who, they've been friends since 8 years old on up. Used to party with them back in high school, and they think they're still in high school. And I just can't be around that crowd anymore. And I don't want to sound snooty, but the friends that I've made, they are millionaires, or they're pretty close to being millionaires. They have a goal in life.
Yeah.
And I tell people I love my friends and family from afar, that are still the drinkers, the partiers, not wanting to go anywhere. I'll still help them if they need me, but I'm not hanging out with them. I'm not trying to be snooty.
When I met the Rolling Stones, I said to Mick Jagger, Sir Mick, what's the most important thing you ever learned? He said, you can't always get what you want, but if you try, sometimes you find you get what you need. And I know it's just a line from a song, but really, and I don't drink anymore. I don't smoke pot anymore, but I want to. I want to drink. Oh my God. I still spend a lot of money on great wine and great tequila and stuff for my clients who come to my events. Last night, my wife has a bunch of her friends from Hollywood who are here, a bunch of her girlfriends. The wine that I opened for them last night was amazing. I really wanted to drink it. I can't get what I want, but what I need is to hang out with people who are of sober mind, okay?
Yes.
Who are directed on making something of your life and going someplace into the future. That's what I need. And I need to be around people like that. So, I can't always get what I want. You know what I want? What I want is to just drink wine and margaritas all day long here in Mexico. That would be really great. But what I need is to have a sober mind and to keep moving forward with my goals and my plans and trying to make something of my life and become the man that I've always wanted to be. That's the whole purpose of the men's weekend that I told you about. And the whole purpose of celebrity entrepreneurship is to live with total freedom as only a celebrity entrepreneur can. My 3 words, I had a mentor. He's like, what are your 3 words that describe what your whole, career is really all about? My 3 words are freedom, power, and adventure. I want the freedom to do whatever I want, the power to make anything happen that I want to make happen. And I want my life to be an adventure every single day. Hey man, I've been living in Acapulco for 3 years and traveling the world and sharing stages with major celebrities and 5 presidents of the United States. And I'll give you one last story of this is a good one. The first president I ever met was George H.W. Bush. And, you got to understand my book, Wisdom of the Men. Okay. It's got most of the most famous people from the 20th and 21st century are in my book because I've met them all, including 5 presidents of the United States. And it's not about politics in any way whatsoever. Because in there, I talk about Donald Trump and Joe Biden and Hillary Clinton and Bill Clinton and George Bush and Jimmy Carter, all of them. And none of it is political. None of it. It's about success. It's about personal power. How do you get the power to make your dreams happen? Who has it and who doesn't? And when I met George H.W. Bush, I was busting my ass. See, I told you I got out of driving taxis and I got into selling gourmet food and started making money. Well, I was on a sales call at 11 a.m. on a Sunday morning. I was in a kitchen at the Wynn Resort in Las Vegas, talking to my friend who was the executive chef of that restaurant. He was also my client. And he's there stirring a big pot of lobster bisque. You know how they have those little wands where you stick it in your coffee and it froths up the milk so you could have a cappuccino, right? He's got one of those the size of a baseball bat, and he's stirring this pot of lobster bisque with that blender, stick blender. And I go, Philippe, man, you are the executive chef of a multi-million-dollar restaurant at the top resort in Las Vegas. You got 20 chefs who work for you. Why don't you have one of your sous chefs stirring this lobster bisque? He goes, because I love it. It is my métier. And I have a big chapter about métier and what that really means. That means what your passion in is. My passion is I'm a writer. I'm not even a speaker. I'm really a writer. I've written 21 best-selling books. And I've been mentored in writing by my high school creative writing teacher, won the Pulitzer Prize for his memoir, Angela's Ashes. The guy who gave me my one and only job in Hollywood because I was dating his daughter, he was a producer of a little movie you might have heard of called Platoon, which won Best Picture. Okay. He also produced The Fugitive with Harrison Ford and The Devil's Advocate with Al Pacino and Keanu Reeves and Seven with Brad Pitt and Morgan Freeman. He produced 29 Studio A feature films. I count him as one of my storytelling mentors because I've studied all of his movies. And you know what's really amazing is that The Fugitive about the evils of the drug companies and how prescient that was. And that's the first time I've ever used the word prescient in a sentence. But that movie really could see the future, because the end of that movie is like, man, this drug company is a monster. And look at the world that the drug companies have created.
Yeah. No
And
one.
my third storytelling mentor is Oprah Winfrey. And when I met Oprah Winfrey, I said, first thing I said to her was, Oprah, what's the most important thing you ever learned? And she said, you are responsible for your own success. And if you've never seen her tell her story about her parents, you know, Oprah Winfrey, her parents were teenagers who met under an oak tree one time. And from that one meeting came Oprah Winfrey. And she was raised by her grandmother and became one of the richest billionaires in the world. And again, this is not about politics. It's not about what you think about Oprah, whether you think she's a good person, a bad person, or you believe in her work or whatever. The freaking lady was basically cast off by her mother, taken in by her grandmother, and became a top billionaire in the world and one of the top stars, one of the top celebrities in the world. Remember how I said you and I will never become celebrities? She made it happen because she understands you are responsible for your own success. These are the people who've taught me how to be a writer, those people. And so that's my métier. I'm a writer. And all of a sudden, I'm in this kitchen with this chef, and I notice something to my left, and I look over, and there's George H.W. Bush and two Secret Service agents, all three of them wearing suits and ties on a Sunday morning at 11 a.m., walking through the kitchen of this restaurant in Las Vegas. And they just go right by us, minding their own business, looking around. And I say to the chef, holy shit, that was the president of the United States. He goes, really? He had no idea. This is 2007. You know, it was pretty recent. And I go running after George Bush into the dining room of the Danielle Boulou Brasserie on the lake at the Wynn. If you ever been to the steakhouse or the brasserie, they're on this beautiful man-made lake in the desert in the Wynn Resort. And I go up to the Secret Service agent and I go, can I get a picture with the president? And he goes, sure. Now, I told you I had taken seminars. I took a lot of seminars. I'm a writer. One of the seminars I took way, way back was another seminar with the partner of Jack Canfield, the other guy in charge of Chicken Soup for the Soul. His name was Mark Victor Hansen, and he had a seminar called Mega Book Marketing. And I took that seminar because I'm a writer. I paid like $1,500 to go to it. And the one thing I took away from that seminar was what Mark Victor Hansen said. He says, you should always carry a little Instamatic camera in your pocket, because in case you meet anybody famous or a celebrity, you're going to want to get a picture with them. And because of that, I had a little digital Sony camera. This was before iPhones, before cell phones had cameras on it. I had a little Sony digital camera in my pocket. So I handed the camera to the Secret Service agent, and I go up to George H.W. Bush and I go, sir, I voted for you. And that was actually true. I voted for Ronald Reagan and George H.W. Bush in 1980. That was the first time I ever voted. Or 84, whatever. Yeah, it was, I don't, it was
80.
84.
Was it 84?
Yeah, 84. Because, yeah, it was 84. It was the 84 election. I voted for them. That was the first time I ever voted. And he goes, oh, thank you, young man. And then we take the picture, and I said, sir, what is the most important thing you ever learned? And he said, well, young man, that's a very big question. But I have to say, you have to keep doing the things you love in this life. Okay, now here's the picture of me and George H.W. Bush. And I want you to notice, okay?
That's pretty cool.
Notice his necktie. What's on the necktie? Those are little parachute jumpers.
Okay, I can't see that on the screen very well.
Here, I'm going to zoom it for you. See the little parachutes?
Okay.
What did George Bush love to do? Parachute jumping. When he was 80 years old, he was on the cover of Time magazine jumping out of an airplane on his birthday.
Wow.
That's
him.
I
remember that.
You see what I'm saying? That's
Yeah.
him doing what you love in this life. And really that's really what it all comes down to. I mean, you could be the most successful guy in the world. And I hear all kinds of billionaires who are freaking miserable because they got nobody. They don't have anything in their life. All they got is money. You can't do that. You got to do the things that you love in this life. That's a leadership lesson from George H.W. Bush. The most important person you need to lead in this life is you. You need to do what you love in this life, or else what's it all worth? You can have all the money in the world, but if you don't get to do what you love, it's not worth anything. It's one of the reasons why I live in Acapulco. See, I showed you the view of the ocean. That ocean is warm. I live in a tropical environment and I swim in tropical waters every day. I'm wearing shorts right now. I just came back from the beach where I was swimming in the warm tropical ocean because that's what I love to do. It's if you ask my wife, what's Clint's favorite thing to do? She'll say swim in tropical water. If you ask her, what's Clint's favorite song? She'll say the national anthem or Raining Men. One of those two.
So I've taken pictures with a lot of celebrities.
Good.
So what do I just put that like on my social media, or how do I?
That's a good way to start. That's a good way to start. But what have I been doing in this whole thing? What have I told you stories about Mick Jagger. I told you stories about George Bush, about Tony Robbins, about Oprah Winfrey, about Dan Kennedy. You got to tell stories. Everything is about stories.
Oh, well, I could tell you some stories, not on here, but I can tell you some stories.
Well, when you listen to my book, Wisdom of the Men, you're going to see it's a whole book of stories about celebrities. That's the whole entire book. And, like it or not, whether you think it's fair or not, people in this day and age are fascinated by celebrities. They think that celebrities are special. I told you about Jack Canfield. I told you about Mark Victor Hansen. People think celebrities are special. And you know what? They are. They're different than you and me. They make a lot more money. They do whatever they want. I mean, dude, I've offered celebrities $250,000 to come to my events, to do events with me and my group. And they're like, no, thanks, not interested. Could you imagine?
Wish I could say that.
Right? I mean, they're different than you and me. And they're a lot of times they're just not interested. They got all the money they need. It's not about money when you become at a certain level. It's not about money. It's about more than money. It's about what you want. And, my book, Wisdom of the Men, is what I've learned from all of these celebrities about, how to have success in your life. And it's a whole book of stories. It's all about stories.
And you have a website, don't you?
Oh, yeah, Clint.com. It's on the screen, CLINTTT.com, 3 T's. Why Clint with 3 T's? Well, look, I work with all kinds of experts. When you Google my name, you'll see me with every celebrity in the world: Snoop Dogg, Mike Tyson, Ringo Starr, all the presidents. But one of my experts that I worked with, who was one of my mentees, one of my students, she invented this science called namology. What does your name mean? What is your name going to do to the rest of your life? What's the impact of your name on your life? And she said to me one time, gee, Clint, I wish you could add an extra T to the end of your name because the T's always come out on top like Trump. That's what she said. And again, this is not about politics. This is about namology. So I couldn't get Clint with 2T's.com, but I got Clint with 3T's.com. And that's one of my websites. And it's a really good website to give out on interviews because it's just easy to remember. It's a fun story. And, this namology science lady, I mean, think about how hokey that is. And yet that girl was on TV, on Fox New York City, on Fox Los Angeles. She spoke at Harvard. She shared the stage with Suzanne Somers and Caitlyn Jenner. She did a lot of stuff. And she didn't die with her song still inside her. She got her message out before she passed away this past year, like a lot of people do. And, it's unfortunate when people die with their song still inside of them. And especially in today's day and age, that's why This year, my MBA program is really all dedicated to living your best life now. That's what it's really about. Going for it in every single way, just living your best life now, not holding back, not waiting till next year. Let's do it now.
Now, to get your books, assuming is on your website.
All my books are on Amazon.
Mm-hmm.
Search Clint Arthur. You'll see my author page on Amazon. My different seminars and programs, or to apply for mentorship, you go to clint.com with 3 T's.
All right. And what about your social media?
I'm on everything. Just Google my name. You're going to see everything. You're going to see 5 pages of Clint Arthur if you just type in Clint Arthur, A-R-T, Clint like Clint Eastwood, Arthur like the king. There you go.
I usually like to share that in the description so
Thank
people
you.
can click
Thank
on
you.
it and go straight to it. But man, this has been very entertaining and enlightening, so I appreciate that.
Good. I'm glad you liked it, Kyle. It's great to connect with you, really. And
same here.
hopefully we'll get to meet in person and move forward. I'm very lucky in that I work with a lot of smart people, and I generally like my clients. They're smart people who are aspirational, and we're all, coming together with the common purpose of trying to make something out of ourselves. So hopefully there's more to come.
Oh, always, man. And we want to help as many people out there as we possibly can. So, there's too much negativity going on in the world. Let's bring some positivity. And not only like to thank you, but I also like to thank my audience. If you are new to the channel, please come back and hit that subscribe button. And for my regulars out there, you guys make it possible for me to do this. And for that, I can't thank you enough. So until the next one, everyone, please take care. Be kind to one another. God bless and peace.
We hope you enjoyed this episode of Listen to the Vibes. You can catch us on Buzzsprout or wherever you listen to your favorite podcasts. And on YouTube. Follow us on Facebook at The Vibes Broadcast Network